Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. I'm Reed Cowan. We're glad you're with us. So we begin this hour with the race for the White House. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump making their way to Wisconsin today after blitzing those battleground states across the Southwest. The two of them set to hold dueling rallies in Milwaukee, all in an effort to get out the vote with just 4 days left until Election Day. And look at this video to our monitors showing lines at polling places. You're looking at Texas, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania. Democracy in action, people voicing their choice. More than 60 million people already cast their ballots for what many say could be the most consequential U.S. election in recent history. Donald Trump, though, today taking criticism for using language talking about one of his biggest detractors that some say is violent. Trump had words for former Congresswoman Liz Cheney during a fireside chat with Tucker Carlson last night. You listen, you decide.
His daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
Liz Cheney responding to those comments from Trump in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying, quote, "This is how dictators destroy free nations. They threaten those who speak against them with death. We cannot," she says, "entrust our country and our freedom to a petty, vindictive, cruel, unstable man who wants to be a tyrant," close quote. And gloves off. So to talk about this escalation, let's bring in CBS News campaign reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, Trump seems to be ramping up his rhetoric against his opponents in the final week of campaigning. Does this help him with his base, and does it help him with undecided voters out there?
Well, according to our CBS News polling that's gone back months now, this is not what people from both sides of the aisle want to be hearing down the home stretch. They've consistently told us in our polling unit that they want to hear policy-focused and policy-centric ideas going down the stretch so that people feel like, at least when they go to cast their ballot in a couple days, or if they already have, that they're doing so on the ideas of how their lives are going to improve. However, we've seen since Sunday's rally at Madison Square Garden, President Biden's comments about those comments, calling Trump supporters garbage, and Donald Trump's embrace of that we saw a couple days ago with that garbage truck rally, that this really, in the home stretch here, has become all about rhetoric. The Trump campaign telling us that those comments were simply about Liz Cheney's foreign policy views and they were not about a threat at her. However, you saw Liz Cheney's comments there, and the Harris campaign calling out those comments, saying that Trump was suggesting a firing squad on the former Congresswoman from Wyoming.
Yeah, this moment really shadowing Trump's message to Latinos in Nevada yesterday. This got the headlines. Let's talk about those voters, those Latino voters, not only in Nevada, but all over the United States. How crucial are they to Donald Trump if he wants to win?
Extremely crucial to both sides. In Nevada and Arizona, former President Trump's campaign feels like they're doing very well among Latino men specifically, even saying that there could be a swing, an unprecedented swing in their direction in terms of that specific voting bloc. Also critical in Pennsylvania, in places like Allentown, where former President Trump was earlier in the week, right after those Madison Square Garden comments about Puerto Ricans, in terms of this voting bloc is just crucial in terms of these tiny communities that are going to sway these states that are just going to be decided by tens of thousands of votes, maybe 100,000 votes maximum down the stretch.
Yeah, and Harris appealed to those same Latino voters last night, that major rally featuring appearances with big celebrities like Jennifer Lopez. We also understand she recorded a radio interview with a syndicated show that's streamed by Univision Radio. That's set to air on Monday. What strategy is revealed there in making that choice?
Well, for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, it's all about maintaining that coalition that got Joe Biden and the vice president elected in the first place in 2020. It is maintaining enough Latino voters and African-American voters in cities all across the country, whether it's in Las Vegas, whether it's in Phoenix, whether it's in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. It's about bringing those coalitions together and bringing them back. While Donald Trump's economic messaging certainly lands, or at least the Trump campaign feels like it lands among Latinos, it is bringing that coalition back into the Democratic Party. Vice President Harris and her campaign, even though it's gotten distracted, like you just said, Reed, over the last week or two, has made specific policy ideas about how they would help Latino business owners in these communities and Latinos generally with her economic policies, as Trump has done the same repeatedly for the last couple of months.
CBS News campaign reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We know we'll be talking to you and your team members a lot more in the coming days. So let's check in on the running mates running out the clock. Dueling campaign events in Michigan today. J.D. Vance in Portage, that's over near Kalamazoo right now, before heading to Selma, North Carolina. That's outside of Raleigh. Meanwhile, Tim Walz making his way across the state of Michigan. And CBS News campaign reporter Torian Small is on the road with the Trump-Vance team in Michigan. Torian, we're in these final hours when we really start to see the choices reveal a strategy. The words reveal a strategy. What do you expect to be revealed by way of strategy from where they are and what they're saying today?
Well, Reed, Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, is focusing on the two I's, immigration and inflation, in his closing arguments. He's been, over the past couple of weeks, really zeroing in on the fact that Kamala Harris is a part of the Biden administration. So, in his words, as much as she tries to distance herself from his record, from record inflation, he is looking to tether it completely to her and remind that to voters as they head to the polls. On immigration, J.D. Vance has been taking this message across the country, especially out west, where we're heading tomorrow for a rally in Las Vegas. And speaking directly to Latino voters, they are saying illegal immigration is your problem, not just a problem for the country. So he's looking to pit Latinos versus undocumented immigrants together as part of the central mission, or central message rather, for the Trump-Vance campaign moving forward.
All right, in his interview with podcaster Joe Rogan, some people call him Bro Rogan, this morning, what are some key takeaways from what was said there?
Well, it's been a lot of what he's been saying on the trail. This was, of course, though, a 3-hour interview, so there was a lot of conspiratorial talk, as usual, to Joe Rogan's typical podcast format, but he really wanted to underscore the fact that Donald Trump is this person who's being targeted by the Biden-Harris administration. He's brought up political persecution and said, as much as Democrats talk about Donald Trump looking to seek vengeance if he is re-elected, he says that Steve Bannon being just released from prison is evidence that this is something that's happening under Biden and Harris. He also talked about an immigration plan, and he spent a good deal on talking about transgender issues, making this culture war as also part of the central message for the the Trump-Vance campaign as we come to a close in these final days.
Torian Small, always in the room when it's happening. We appreciate you so much. Pace yourself out there. All of you and our reporters, we know it has been a Herculean effort. Know of our gratitude. Torian Small, thank you so much. So we're watching election night results with you on election night. Analysis, exclusive CBS polling with the entire CBS News team, not only in New York, but stretched out throughout the battleground states and elsewhere in the United States. You can watch America Decides Election 24 live coverage. November 5th starts 4 p.m. Eastern on CBS News 24/7 and 7 p.m. Eastern on CBS. A deadly mass shooting in Orlando. It's happened again. Hundreds of people running in the night. Police say the trigger man is a teenager. What we know about the dead, what we know about the wounded, and the one police put the cuffs on when we come back. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. This is a scary scene. This is surveillance footage out of Florida. It's capturing the chaos down at the street level in downtown Orlando. Shots fly there. The crowd goes running. This is during a Halloween celebration, and here's your headline. Another mass shooting in the United States. 2 people dead, 6 wounded. Victims range in age from 19 to 39. In fact, this is the moment. We just got this video that police took down that 17-year-old suspect right to the ground. They got him. Let's listen to what Orlando's police chief had to say earlier about their investigation.
At this time, we are aware of 8 total victims. 2 are now deceased. 6 other individuals who were shot were transported to ORMC for further treatment. Those victims are currently in stable condition. Shortly after the reported shots fired, a shooting suspect was located and taken into custody at Washington and Orange. He has been identified as 17-year-old Jalen Dwayne Edgar. He was previously arrested for grand theft in 2023. This is still an active investigation. As we gather more information, we'll provide you with another update.
Families gathered in that crowd running in the night. Let's continue following another shooting, this one in Colorado. Police rushed to a large house party last night. Neighbors there heard gunfire, called for help. In this case, one person died on the scene, 2 others died at the hospital. CBS News, Colorado, following this story.
We are continuing to cover breaking news on CBS Colorado Mornings. We've learned 3 people are now dead and 3 others are hurt after a deadly shooting in North Glen. According to police, this happened at a large house party on Halloween. The shooting occurred at a home on Balfour Drive that's in a neighborhood near I-25 and 104th.
Now, our photographer on scene at 5 this morning showed a very large police presence on CBS Colorado Mornings before your reporter, Michael Abatha, arrived at around 6:30 this morning. So Michael is still at the scene right now. Michael, what's the very latest here in terms of what's happening?
Well, the very latest is that we now learned that 3 people have died from this shooting. Neighbors tell me that they heard gunshots at around 11:50 on Thursday night. Now, police showed up just after midnight on Friday morning. When they came here, they found a house party. Neighbors say there was a house party going on at this house behind me. Now, the police say that when they got here, they found 5 people injured and 1 person was dead. They rushed those 5 people that were injured to the hospital. 2 of them died at the hospital, so that brings that total number of deceased from the shooting to 3. They say that police say there may have been multiple shooters that they are looking for in this case, and they are still investigating, but they say there is no danger to the public. We'll keep you updated as the day goes on here in this neighborhood that seems usually quiet, but last night had a tragic end to a Halloween party. In North Glen, Michael Abatha, covering Colorado First.
So detectives working to identify the person who opened fire inside a mall in Vancouver, Washington, north of Portland last night. The gunman firing into a food court. In the end, 1 dead, 2 injured. Still no word in this case of what a motive could have been. A trial underway in New York City for the man prosecutors say choked another man to death on a subway there. You're looking at Daniel Penny going into court facing manslaughter charges in the 2023 death of Jordan Neely. That's video of Penny arriving in court this morning. Penny defends what happened, saying Neely boarded the train screaming and threatening to kill everyone. Penny says he acted to protect other riders. You're seeing protesters outside that courtroom right now saying justice for Jordan Neely. Many people, including prosecutors, say Penny took things too far, killing Neely while he held him in a chokehold. An update today on that Boeing worker strike. The company put a new offer on the table to union leaders, and they endorsed it. Now, union members vote Monday, potentially ending Boeing's weeks-long and very expensive work stoppage due to the strike. So what's in it for workers? 38% pay bump over 4 years. 4 years, that's important to underline. That's up from the previous offer of 35%, which the union rejected. Our live feed's now taking you to Northern California. This is a camera's view of the Sierra at Tahoe Resort. More snow, we understand, is on the way to turn a dusting into what, a dump, Jess?
Oh, right around the corner. I mean, we're under a winter weather advisory. We're expected to see anywhere up to around 12 inches of snow throughout the Sierra heading into this weekend's forecast. It's a part of a larger system that's bringing in some heavy wind and rain for all of our friends up in the Pacific Northwest. Let's continue to head over into that area, stretch all the way over into the Pacific Northwest. Let's zoom out just a bit so you can see it. That storm system continues to impact millions of Americans with heavy rain and snow throughout this weekend, stretching from the Cascades all the way down into the Pacific, or actually into the Sierra region too. Now, in the center of the states, we're actually dealing with another storm system in areas like Kansas City as we head into the overnight hours tonight. It's like we haven't had any breaks over there, and I'll have more on that in just a second. Let's start up in the Pacific Northwest, though. Snow is already falling for our friends along the Cascades, and we continue to watch heavy showers and thunderstorm activity sweep in from offshore, a part of this area of low pressure that's also bringing in showers for our friends along the bay in San Francisco as we head into this weekend's forecast. Now, all the way up into the Sierra Tahoe region, they are expected to receive close to around 12 inches of snow, with winds anywhere up to around 45 miles per hour. Now we change gears and head over into the Midwest, areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, all the way down into Texas. It was just yesterday we were dealing with active storms, and we continue to see more of that as we head into the afternoon and evening hours tonight, stretched up into Kansas City. This is going to be a very active weekend for us with heavy storms sweeping throughout that region. Now notice there are breaks at times, but these storms come in and they pack a punch. We can see heavy winds, a lot of severe weather, thunderstorm activity possible, widespread throughout that lighter green color that stretches over into the state of New Mexico too. That slight risk for severe weather starts to shift northwards all the way up into Oklahoma and Kansas, heading into our Sunday forecast. Reed?
All right, thank you so much. A look at downtown Los Angeles now. And a listen. Thousands of fans celebrating the Dodgers with a World Series championship parade about to start. This is what excitement in a community looks like, folks. Yes, they're wearing their Dodger gear there, and so many people clapping and very happy. Look at the little one on the left. Well, we just missed that, but trust me, they're raising that child to be a Dodgers fan. That's what you call a Dodgers onesie, and a twosie, and a threesie, and a foursy. Times about 1,000 people down there on the street. This is the Dodgers' first parade in 36 years, and they are making the most of it. Man, I love Freddie, says that sign. Dodger fan today, tomorrow, and forever. All right, so let's talk about things happening overseas, and not quite so jubilant at that. Thousands of North Korean troops in Russia reportedly wearing Russian uniforms and eyeing Ukraine. Why the U.S. is now putting in a call to China for help to try to get those North Korean troops out of Russia. That's ahead on CBS News 24/7. Stay with us. Right off the top, a live look at the White House, where the Biden administration faces more fallout from the president's remarks calling Trump supporters garbage. Here's a reminder of what he had to say.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable.
So Biden walked those comments back, saying they were in reference to comments made by a comedian at a Trump rally calling Puerto Rico a floating pile of garbage. But the Associated Press now reporting the White House press office changed the transcript of those remarks. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang standing there now to talk to us about this. This is a big question here today, Weijia. Is it a question of a simple apostrophe, missing a bigger problem? What is this from where you stand?
So, Reed, this may appear like it's just a question of grammar, but in reality, the question is whether Joe Biden was calling one Trump supporter, the comedian who made the vile joke about Puerto Ricans, garbage, or if he was calling, all of Trump supporters garbage, which we're talking about half of the country. And so that is why the White House took such quick measures right after these remarks became public to say that he was just talking about one supporter, which is why they claim there was an apostrophe. And when we, the press, received the transcript, there was an apostrophe with the word supporters. So what is this latest development with the stenographer's office? Well, the Associated Press is reporting that they, the stenographers, objected to changing the transcript because it was their stenographer that prepared it, and then the White House looked at it and said, wait a minute, we want to change this. And now Republicans are saying you can't do that in order to have a more politically savvy message. Of course, the White House maintains that they, were trying to reflect what President Biden meant. But we do have a statement from the stenographer's office, Reed, and they say that it was a breach of protocol and spoliation of transcript integrity between the stenography and press offices. Because remember, these guys who transcribe everything the president says, who take it in real time, they are not part of the White House communications and press team. They are just doing, what they can to get every single word that the president says. So the issue is why the White House changed what the stenographer wrote. And you're right, this is a big deal because, again, we're not talking about just an apostrophe. We're talking about whether Biden was calling one or tens of millions of Trump supporters garbage.
Right, and arguably Republican media really saying it clearly today. It's less about the transcript and more about what's on that tape. And by the way, we should note that Vice President Kamala Harris was asked about this. Our crews asked her about this. She highlighted the fact that the president had clarified his comments, but then made comments of her own saying she doesn't like rhetoric of this type at all on either side. Question for you. The president also is scheduled to visit Philadelphia today. That state's crucial for anybody who wants to win the White House. I would imagine everybody wants President Biden to stay on script today.
So not only is that state crucial, but the city of Philadelphia, Reed, could really make or break it for Vice President Harris in terms of winning the state and then winning the election. And it might be a coincidence that he's going there because this is not an official campaign event. This is a White House event during which the president will talk about how his policies were able to save about 30,000 pensions in the state of Pennsylvania for union workers. But of course, when you're talking about 4 days out from the election, it's not really a coincidence. Again, this is the center of the universe for Harris's campaign. And so he will be talking about how the Biden-Harris policies have saved now in total 1.2 million pensions for people across the country, Reed.
Well, as the leaves there fall behind you in our nation's capital, so also do the headlines. Weijia Jiang, always a joy talking to you. Thank you so much, my friend. Meanwhile, the Biden administration asking for China's help getting North Korean troops out of Ukraine. You heard that right. U.S. leaders calling on China to use their influence to prevent escalation between Russia and Ukraine. At this moment, thousands of North Korean troops reportedly wearing Russian uniforms are in Russia, causing concern at the U.S. State Department. So far, no response from Beijing. So let's talk to CBS News Pentagon reporter Ellie Watson. You have news, we understand, about a rare meeting that happened earlier this week. Take our viewers inside that.
Yeah, so earlier this week, 3 top U.S. diplomats met with the Chinese ambassador to the U.S. to try and convince China to use its influence over North Korea to stop North Korean soldiers from entering the war in Ukraine. China is North Korea's biggest trade partner and its top aid provider, but China has become more and more concerned about North Korea's provocative actions like missile tests that could destabilize the Pacific. The North Koreans have demonstrated this week that they can launch intercontinental ballistic missile, and the diplomats are warning China that North Korean troops in Ukraine would be a concern not only because it would be an Asian country joining a European war, but also because of what North Korea may get from Russia in return for providing those troops. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pointed that out this week and said China understands the U.S. expectations, but so far China, at least publicly, has stayed silent.
And, it's been really interesting to watch not only the video out of North Korea of that launch of the ballistic missile, but also how they're selling it to their own citizens and also, by extension, to the world. They say it's one of the biggest, one of the best missile launches. But is it?
Well, experts we've talked to said that the launcher for this missile may be so big that it makes it hard to maneuver and very easy to pick out on satellite photos, making it easy for the U.S. to track preparations ahead of a launch, which kind of takes away from the progress North Korea has made, demonstrated by this test and the test last December with its solid fuel propellant technology. The last missile test and this missile test both demonstrated that North Korea is making strides in using solid fuel propellants, which essentially make it less detectable than if it continued to use liquid fuel propellants. What remains unclear is whether North Korea has developed a way to deliver a warhead on an intercontinental ballistic missile track. The test this week theoretically had the range to reach the U.S., but the missile was shot straight up in the air and not on the ballistic missile path that would be required if North Korea was actually in a war.
Ellie Watson, thank you so much for that report. Good to have you on the stream today. In the Middle East, our eye is on Lebanon, where Israel resumed airstrikes. This time, 24 are dead. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams reports the latest deadly strikes come with no sign of a ceasefire and no sign of a hostage deal anywhere close on the horizon.
Israel is continuing to pummel both the Gaza Strip and Lebanon. Overnight, 47 people were killed by Israeli strikes in central Gaza, according to Palestinian media. Today, Israel bombarded the southern suburbs of Lebanon's capital, Beirut. And Israel is also carrying out strikes in the Baalbek region of Lebanon, which is home to UNESCO-listed Roman ruins. Israeli authorities say that 7 people were killed yesterday in northern Israel by fire from Lebanon. Those are the deadliest strikes in this country since Israel invaded southern Lebanon last month. In Gaza, the death toll after over a year of war is now more than 43,000, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. The war began after militants from Gaza stormed into Israel on October 7th last year, killing around 1,200 people. Lebanon's health ministry says 2,800 people have been killed in that country since Hezbollah and Israel began exchanging fire in October last year. Despite months of diplomacy, the US, which is Israel's most important and most powerful ally, has so far been unable to broker a ceasefire and hostage deal to end the Israel-Hamas war or to prevent an escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much. So we're watching Wall Street right now. You can see the monitor there behind me. News breaking about a jobs report that has candidate Donald Trump using the numbers as ammunition in the final days leading up to the day America decides what the numbers have to say and how Wall Street reacts. That's coming up on CBS News 24/7. Well, the final jobs report before Election Day is out, and it's the weakest we have seen since late 2020. Only 12,000 jobs added in October, significantly lower than the much celebrated 200,000 jobs added in September. So economists say labor strikes and extreme weather impacted those numbers we're looking at. But this is how the Dow is reacting today in real time. Obviously, we have a little bit of time before the Dow closes to end the week. Wanted to peek in and give you that picture, though. You know, yesterday, President Joe Biden took a victory lap on the inflation report today. Not quite the same picture as voters go to the polls. So let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, what's the message in these numbers?
Yes, so Reed, how I'm reading this is that the labor market is definitely slowing, but that anemic 12,000 jobs number, I don't want to be too hyperbolic because really what's driving these are temporary dynamics. So the two hurricanes, Helene and Milton, as well as a lot of ongoing labor strikes, including that big one at Boeing. So just to kind of give you a couple of numbers, unemployment held at 4.1%. There were some big winners in terms of the sectors. Healthcare, education added 57,000 jobs. Manufacturing, though, big loser, that lost 46,000. And that's really where you see the impact of the strikes, especially the Boeing strike. You know, their suppliers are impacted. They can't go, and create more parts. That really impacts the manufacturing sector. One thing that I thought was really important, Reed, is average hourly earnings. That increased 4% annually. Why is that important? That is outstripping the inflation rate of 2.1% that we saw yesterday. So that is a good thing. That means that your wages are growing at a higher rate than inflation. The bad news, Reed, which is good news for the Fed, is that we did get revisions to the past two jobs report to the tune of 112,000 fewer jobs added. I bring that up because what that tells you, in addition to this jobs report, is the labor market is cooling, okay? We are not growing as fast as we were. Now, that might seem like bad news, but that's actually good news for the Fed. That's what they want to see going into that next week meeting, Reed.
All right, and as they go into that next week meeting next week, of course, everybody wants to know about interest rates, whether it's the interest rate you pay on your credit card, your car, or how it could potentially impact mortgage rates. What do you see there?
Excuse me. So we're likely going to get a quarter-point cut, and that's really because of the inflation news that we saw yesterday, the jobs report today, as well as those revisions. The Fed is looking at this and saying, like, okay, I think it's time likely for another quarter-point cut. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of analysts. What we're going to see in December and January, it's still hard to read the tea leaves. But Reed, you mentioned how the market is doing. It's kind of celebrating this, and it's a classic case of bad news in a jobs report is good news for that interest rate cut, because that's certainly what a lot of investors want to see.
Putting it into perspective, I'm so glad you're my friend, because when we have lunch, you'll be the one to check the receipt. I just know it. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Hey, we have new numbers giving us an indication of how passionate Georgia voters are this election cycle. So look at this. Georgia shattered early voting records with more than 50% of active voters submitting their ballots already. This is democracy in action, people. And in fact, take a look at this. This is the Georgia voting map. 3 million people hit the polls as today marks the last day of in-person early voting in that state. We do have some breaking news here on that. Officials now giving an update on recent efforts to spread misinformation leading up to Election Day. We're hearing that word, that term a lot, misinformation. So CBS News Justice reporter Robert Laguerre has the details that came in just moments ago. Some federal agencies released. They had a lot to say about their investigation. It looks like this misinformation has its ties back to Russia. What can you tell us?
Hey, Reid. Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So what we know is that Russian election efforts, according to U.S. officials, part of the ODNI, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, CISA, which is the organization that oversees election infrastructure, and the FBI, they have determined that a video that has surfaced online and become popular in recent days, alleging that Haitian migrants were casting votes in the Georgia election, that is Russian misinformation, according to these intelligence agencies. The Georgian Secretary of State's office, led by Republicans in that state, have already disavowed these claims and said that they are fake. Now we are getting the federal government involved, bolstering that report as well, saying that yes, this video is in fact disinformation. Reid, this is part of a broader effort by the federal government to watch Russian, Iranian, and Chinese disinformation campaigns throughout the election cycle. They've been warning for months, weeks leading up to the election that our foreign adversaries throughout the world are going to try to spread disinformation leading up to the election.
Yeah, it just shows you how diabolical and calculated really it is. They'll take a false headline about Haitian Americans and then capitalize on it, spin it to sow doubt in voters' minds as they're voicing their choice. How widespread is this? Is this just one little fire to put out, or are we seeing that these are fires going on all over the country?
Well, there's disinformation across the country, but what federal officials are warning against are these broader campaigns by Russia, China, and Iran to sow doubt. We saw just last month, or earlier this month, rather, Iranian-backed hackers were indicted by the Justice Department for what the Justice Department says was a broad scheme to hack into the Trump campaign and then peddle information to the Biden and Harris campaigns. Justice Department officials say that the information was not used and this was flagged to the authorities, but this is just evidence of broader campaigns by America's adversaries to try to sow doubt in the election. We also saw, to your point, earlier this year, a scheme that federal officials are calling doppelganger, which is basically an effort by Russia-backed actors to create fake online articles that looked like real ones from Fox News, from the Washington Post, and other trusted outlets to then elevate them and to sow discord. And so this is something that we're seeing online across the spectrum here, and federal officials have stood up a command post to try to combat them.
Robert Laguerre, CBS News Justice Department reporter, thank you so much. A crucial conversation to have as we tick down to the very last remaining hours in the U.S. election. Thank you so much. Be well. Stay with CBS News for exit polling. Real-time results and analysis all day from all over the country, especially in those battleground states. Special coverage starts at 4 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News 24/7. You want to see Americans coming together? We definitely need to see that, right? Let's look at Los Angeles when we come back. Dodgers fans excited. Maybe not our friends in New York, but Dodgers fans are coming together. We'll be right back. All right, New Yorkers, I'm talking to you. We love you, so just close your eyes for just a second. Los Angeles celebrating its beloved Dodgers today. Fans lined up as early as 3 o'clock in the morning to see the team hoist that World Series trophy. CBS News Los Angeles reporter Cara Finstrom on the ground talking to fans. We're just moments away from the start of what's going to be a huge and historic parade. Hello there, Cara. It looks so fun.
Hello. Oh, it has been so fun. You know, we actually had to back out of the crowd. This is a humongous crowd. I didn't realize how much love we had for our Dodgers here until I arrived this morning, and I've been speaking with all of these fans. This is the Vialta family. They came out from South LA, came up very early this morning. That's quite a feat with 3 kids. And you were telling me that you guys support your son who plays for a Dodger team.
Yeah. In the city of South LA, Joshua plays back catcher, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to be part not only of the community, but of our LA Dodgers.
Oh, yeah. You guys are also excited. You tell me about who you're going to be looking for when the parade comes down. We've got some double-decker buses coming down.
Yeah. I'm really happy to see all the baseball players, and see we won the title, the trophy, and I'm really happy we've been here.
All right. Well, we're happy that they made it as well. So I want to leave you with a look, though. Take a look at this crowd. It is insane. I mean, as far as we could see, every way around, we've got folks out here. They started coming really early. Of course, we couldn't do this parade back in 2020 when we won last time. So folks just so eager to share that blue pride. Back to you.
And something I love whenever we see a scene like this is communities coming together, but we are reminded that sports knows no politics. And we don't know the politics of anybody in that crowd, but we just know that they're neighbors cheering each other on and coming together. Carl Frindstrom, thank you for bringing us a little dose of joy in our broadcast today. And to you in New York, you can open your eyes now. No, really, you can't. This is your turn. We're going to look live at JFK, or shot near JFK Airport, right? Jess, November 1, a lot of people who will walk in Central Park to walk off their feelings about that game will be walking in clothes that aren't quite as heavy as they might wear November 1st.
I know, it's tank top and shorts weather for our friends up in the Northeast right now. Anywhere from the mid-Atlantic up into New England, we're talking about record-breaking heat once again, with red flag warnings wide stretched throughout New York, Pennsylvania, stretching up into Massachusetts too. So let's talk about it. Daytime highs today sitting in the 70s and 80s over there, and that puts us about 20 to 25 degrees above average, anywhere from Boston all the way over into New York. We're also dealing with above normal conditions too, all the way down into the south, just not nearly as extreme as some of our friends up in the Northeast. We head over to areas like Dallas and New Orleans as well. It is a warm setup for us, yet those areas were dealing with some really strong thunderstorms just last night. Take a look behind me real fast. Record-breaking heat continues to impact millions of Americans from the Northeast all the way down into the South. And as we head into the coming days, we're not seeing too much of a change right around the corner. Let's advance this real fast. I want to show you what's happening heading into the afternoon hours today. We're breaking records. We're expected to break records, I should say, in areas like Boston, Hartford, all the way over into Bangor too. And looking up into the north, we're continuing to see well above average conditions throughout the next 6 to 10 days. This is issued by the Climate Prediction Center, and we have seen it shift a little bit. But if anything, now we're starting to keep a close eye on the West Coast, because areas like the Bay Area all the way up into the Pacific Northwest, they're expected to experience some warmer weather into early next week too. That means 70s near the Bay. We're expecting our friends up into the Pacific Northwest to be dealing with 80s and a lot of sunshine right around the corner.
Okay. Jess, thanks.
Of course.
It's our promise here on CBS News 24/7. When we see it, you see it. So we just saw this. J.D. Vance using a prop while campaigning in battleground Michigan moments ago, getting mileage out of the garbage comment from President Joe Biden. Listen.
We have a garbage truck behind us. Why do we have that? Remember, from Hillary Clinton calling us deplorables to other Democrats saying that we cling to our guns and to our religion, to now Kamala Harris's boss saying that Donald Trump supporters are garbage. These are people who hate their fellow citizens. And I think if this movement of ours is animated by anything, it's that we love our fellow citizens. We want them to have prosperity again, and that's why we're going to make Donald J. Trump the next president of the United States. And to my fellow citizens, you are not garbage. We are not garbage for being pissed off that the country just lost 46,000 manufacturing jobs in a month. We are not bad people for thinking that Kamala Harris ought to do her job and close down the damn border. We are not bad people for wanting our fellow citizens to be able to afford the price of groceries. We love this country. We're fighting for this country, and we are going to deliver prosperity back to the United States of America in 4 days when Donald J. Trump comes back to the White House.
All right, so you're watching the comments of J.D. Vance. Listen, if what President Joe Biden had to say there that day, the choice of the word garbage, was a horse, they are riding it all the way to the finish line. When we come back, our CBS News Eye on America series will keep us rooted in our values in your communities. That's coming up soon. New information in the case of a camper killed in the state of Montana. A DNA test led detectives to the man they say committed this brutal attack. As CBS News correspondent Carter Evans is about to show you, this murder looks so violent that police at first thought it was a bear that attacked.
When Dustin Jersom was brutally attacked and killed at a Montana campsite earlier this month, friends who found him thought he'd been mauled by a bear. But as investigators combed the crime scene, they say the evidence suggested murder.
The detectives collected DNA from a beer can inside of Jersom's tent and sent it to the Montana State Crime Lab.
Gallatin County Sheriff Dan Springer says that DNA on the beer can was a match for 41-year-old Darren Abbey, who was out on parole at the time of the killing and was later arrested.
This individual confessed to the murder of Dustin Gerson.
Investigators don't have a motive. They say it was a chance encounter while the suspect was looking for a place to camp for the night.
As he approached the site, he realized someone was staying there. He stated Dustin welcomed him to the campsite and offered him a beer. At some point, this individual struck Dustin Gerson with a piece of solid wood, stabbed him in the neck with a screwdriver, and ultimately hit him with the axe.
The Sheriff's Department also noted several items, including an axe, shotgun, revolver, and cooler, were missing from the scene.
This individual removed items from the campsite he believed had evidence that could tie him to the crime. This is the behavior of a guilty subject who thought they could get away with murder.
Earlier this month, Jersom's sister described her younger brother while choking back tears.
We lost our brother, our son, our uncle, our best friends, and our dad in the most unimaginable way. He was a loving, helpful, and adoring father who in no way deserved this.
Carter Evans, CBS News.
Back in the United States, and we want to show you this. This is surveillance video to our monitors of this story out of Florida. A mass shooting. It left 2 dead, 6 others injured. It happened during Halloween celebrations in downtown Orlando. The victims range in age 19 to 39. Police arrested a 17-year-old suspect, saying he opened fire in the middle of a crowd, sending thousands running. So far, no word of a motive. Jumping the map now to Indiana, where jurors hear evidence in the trial of the man accused of killing 2 teen girls. Prosecutors say Richard Allen murdered the teens and then dumped their bodies along a remote trail. Well, the defense trying to sow doubt. They're using a witness who claims the day of the murders, she didn't see anyone on that trail. She says she walks it every day. More testimony from defense witnesses throughout the day. To New York City, where Mayor Eric Adams will face a judge in a courtroom. His lawyers asking for a bribery charge to be tossed out. Their argument, the charge does not meet the federal standards of a crime. Adams also faces wire fraud and conspiracy charges. He is accused of accepting flight upgrades and illegal campaign contributions from foreign nationals looking to buy his influence. Adams says he's not guilty. Look at this video to our monitors showing us Heidi Klum's out-of-this-world Halloween costume. She showed up to her annual party dressed as Mrs. E.T., complete with mechanical features, we understand, inside that suit that allowed her to move the eyes and move the mouth as she speaks, sort of like flying a spaceship, only inside the skin of E.T. Klum's costumes every year are iconic. We know that. She actually sets the step and repeat, sets the lights, and then she even turned the finger on of E.T. Check that out, pointing home, as E.T. does. In fact, Heidi Klum says it takes her a full year to put this together, and in this case, it looks like it took her a light year to put together. Can you imagine her costume budget, people? She's shaming us all. I used just stuff out of the closet. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you seeing us on a Friday, but next week, a big week as the campaign and Americans voice their choice. That's it for CBS News 24/7.